This is Fitness Blender's squat-free butt and thigh workout. In this routine, we're going to be doing 2 rounds of 8 different exercises for a total of 40 minutes. You're going to need a chair or a tabletop for a couple of these exercises, so make sure you have that on hand. Let's go ahead and get started with our first round. Let's go ahead and get started with the first exercise of this round, the kneeling leg extensions. You're going to be down on your knees and elbows for this one, and you're going to be starting off with that left leg first. Let's go ahead and get ready. And begin. Like I said, starting on those knees and elbows, you can bring that left leg up, keeping your knee bent, squeeze it up nice and tight, trying to keep that thigh up as high as you possibly can, nice tight squeeze on that butt, and then extend that leg out to a full extension, lock that knee, then slowly bend that foot back in, get as much of a compression on that leg as is comfortable, and then extend that leg right back out again. Just keep that motion going back and forth, being really conscious to make sure you're keeping that thigh up as high as you possibly can. Just a tight squeeze on that butt the entire time, as well as getting a nice tight squeeze on that hamstring every single time you pull that foot in. Now we're going to be doing quite a few repetitions on this one, so you actually might feel that right hip start to cramp up on you a little bit. If you're feeling that right hip really act up, then you need to shift more of your weight onto your left elbow. So kind of push your weight more into your shoulders and onto that left side. That should take that pressure off of that right hip and make it feel a lot better. Now another thing you can do is make sure that you're contracting all those muscles in that hip of that right side as well to make sure that you're holding that joint nice and solid. A lot of times that pain is associated with letting that hip relax and actually letting those muscles stretch into a position that they're not comfortable with. So if you make sure you keep that joint really nice and solid, keep all those muscles tensed, that should take a lot of the tension out as well. We're almost done, just a few more repetitions. Remember, try to keep that thigh up there really nice and high. It's probably starting to droop a little bit, that butt's starting to get a little bit tired. Just keep it up there, we're almost done. And go ahead and let that leg relax. We're going to switch over right onto that opposite side. So bring that right leg up this time, same exact motion, just using that right leg. Extend that leg out, full extension, really lock that knee, then slowly pull that heel back in. Get as tight of a compression, squeezing that hamstring, and then nice and slow, let it right back out. Make sure you're trying to keep that thigh up really nice and high, tight squeezing that butt the entire time. Everything in that body should actually be really nice and tense to making sure that you're keeping everything contracted, holding that position really nice and steady. Those shoulders be contracted, pressed down away from you. Don't let those shoulders relax up towards those ears or back behind you. You don't want to let them droop. You want to keep that chest kind of contracted, pulling those shoulders down. Those abs and obliques should be contracted, holding that stability through that core, making sure those hips don't sway. And that glute on that left leg should be nice and contracted, making sure that hip joint's not relaxing and causing any kind of discomfort. So you want to make sure that you're evenly dispersing your weight. You want it up in your elbows evenly as well as back on that leg. You don't want to push too much of your weight back onto that left leg. Otherwise, that hip's going to really start bothering you. And we're almost done, just a few more repetitions through. Just keep that motion really nice and strong. Keep checking that thigh. Make sure you're pulling that thigh up as high as you possibly can. Getting a nice extension, pushing that leg out nice and straight, working against yourself for that hamstring, that quadricep, the front of that thigh and the back of the thigh. Just getting a nice tight squeeze as you pull that heel in and a nice tight extension as you push that leg out. We're almost done. And let it relax. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next exercise. We're doing a downward dog arc. So we're going to be up on those hands and feet for that downward dog position. We're going to be alternating back and forth, starting with that left leg first. And let's start up. Go ahead and come up into that downward dog. Press that chest down. Try to get a nice straight line from your wrist all the way up to those hips. And a nice straight line through that leg. You can bring that left leg out to the side and back. And then the same thing with that right, out to the side and back across. Just a nice big full arcing motion. You want to make a nice big half circle if you can. Up and over. And slowly bring it back. Try to get as much range of motion out of that hip as you can. It's okay if you open those hips up a little bit to the side. You want to try to really work that range of motion, just whatever's comfortable. So you should be feeling this quite a bit in that glute again, because that's going to be primarily running this motion. You're also going to be feeling it in your outside thigh, the front of your thigh, and the back of your thigh, because you want to keep that leg nice and straight. You want to keep those muscles tensed. You're also going to be feeling it a lot through those hip flexors, the front of that hip, also that lower back, those obliques, those abdominal muscles. And oddly enough, you're also going to be feeling this quite a lot in your shoulders. By the time you're done with this, those shoulders are going to be dead. They're going to be burning on you like crazy. So be expecting that. Just keep that motion going nice and slow. Remember, alternating sides. Every single repetition is a different leg. Just nice, slow, fluid motions. You don't hurry through this. Really focus on that form and try to push that range of motion. All right, go ahead and mentally recheck that form one more time. That downward dog position, you want to try to keep that chest nice and low. You want to try to keep a straight line from your wrist all the way up to that hip as best you can. And with that leg motion, you want a nice big sweeping motion up as high as you can, out to the side as wide as you can. Try to get as close to a 90-degree angle off of your torso or more if you can. And then slowly bringing it back. Make sure that leg is perfectly straight. You never want to let that knee bend through this entire motion. Whether you're standing on or whether you're actually moving that leg, it's always perfectly straight. Try to get a nice slow fluid motion, opening up those hips every time you bring that leg over top. And make sure that those abs are staying nice and tight, those obliques are staying nice and tight, and that thigh and that hamstring is completely contracted, keeping that leg straight. Now we are almost done, just a few more repetitions, so keep pushing through it. I know those shoulders are probably dying on you by now. Try to keep those arms locked out. And let it relax. All right, good job. Let's move to the next exercise, the bridge leg circles. We're going to be on your back for this one, so go ahead and flip over. Go ahead and get ready. And begin. Start by coming up into that bridge position. Those feet just about hip width apart. Squeeze those hips up really nice and high. Try to get a straight line from your knee all the way down to your shoulder. Keeping those hips up constantly the entire time you're going through that range of motion. You're going to be alternating back and forth, left leg to right leg after you do that circle motion with that leg. So bring those hips up, get a nice big circle out to the side, up underneath, reverse it, back around, pause it for just a second, drop that knee, drop those hips, and then come right back up again. Do the same thing in the other leg. So nice big circle clockwise, counterclockwise, nice and slow drop that leg, drop those hips, and switch back over the other side. Just keep alternating back and forth. Really focus on keeping those glutes nice and tight the entire time. Doing that leg circle, you should have that thigh completely contracted. You want the front of that thigh, the quadricep contracted. You want the back of that thigh, that hamstring contracted to make sure that knee's perfectly straight. And you want to keep them nice and tight to make sure you're burning extra calories. The rest of that motion is all driven from that glute and that lower back, bringing yourself up off that mat. And then those hip flexors and that outside and inside thigh are doing that nice circular motion along with it. Now, another little trick to this exercise is the wider you place those arms, the easier it's going to be for you to keep your balance. Those shoulders and those arms are what's going to help you keep that balance when you're up on that one leg. So the wider you go, the easier it's going to be. Now, if you want it more difficult, you bring those hands in narrower underneath you, or you can actually bring those hands all the way up off the ground so just your elbows are touching, or bring those arms all the way off the ground so just those shoulders are touching. Or you can make it really difficult by actually stretching those shoulders up off the ground so just that spine is the only thing keeping you balanced. Makes those core muscles have to work twice as hard. You get a lot more of a workout out of it. You also increase that overall control and turn this exercise into a balance exercise to improve that overall coordination. And here's a good point to go back and check your form. Make sure everything's still nice and clean. Those hips are probably getting tired, so they're starting to probably droop a little bit when you try to pick them up. So really focus on trying to get a nice tight squeeze, pulling those hips up as high as you possibly can. Make sure you're still getting a nice big circle with that leg. You're trying to get that full range of motion all the way around, starting at the top, bring it all the way around to the side, bring it up, pause, reverse that direction, all the way back around, pause again, then switch sides. Remember, keep focusing on getting that really nice high, tight squeeze to those hips. You want a nice straight line from your shoulders all the way up to that knee of the leg that's holding you up. Just keep alternating back and forth, nice fluid motion, trying to make sure that leg stays nice and straight. Make sure that quadriceps contracted, make sure that hamstring's contracted. That knee should be completely straight the entire time you're doing that circle with that leg. Now we're almost done, so really start focusing on that form. Make sure everything's really nice and clean. We're almost done. Make sure that circle is as big as possible, pushing that range of motion as far as you possibly can, every single circle, both clockwise and counterclockwise. And let it relax. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next exercise. We're going to be doing leg lift pulses next. So go ahead and grab a chair or a table for this next one. You want something relatively tall. Go ahead and get ready. And begin. Lean forward. Try to get a 90-degree angle off of that leg. So that leg should be pretty much straight underneath you. You want a little tiny bit of a bend in it. That torso should be completely parallel to the ground. That leg should be going from a parallel position up as high as you can squeeze it, and then back down to that parallel position. Just keep that motion going. Nice tight squeeze. Just a really short range of motion. Squeezing as tight as you possibly can the entire time. You want that hamstring and that quadricep completely contracted, making sure that leg stays perfectly straight. Flex that toe out behind you so that calf and that shin muscle are having to contract and work. And also make sure those core muscles are nice and tight. Those abs are tight, those obliques are tight, and that lower back is tight. Making sure you're stabilizing those hips as best you can and using that chair for just a little bit of extra support for balance. And we're almost done with this one, just a few more repetitions. Keep focusing on getting as tight of a squeeze as you can at the very top of that range of motion, really making that butt have to work. Almost done. And let it relax. All right, we're going to switch sides. We're going to do the same exact motion on that other leg. So bring that other leg up, that right leg, squeeze it really nice and tight. Make sure that quadricep and that hamstring are nice and contracted, making sure that leg's straight, that toes flexed out back behind you. That torso is parallel to the ground, and that leg that you're standing on, that left leg, has just a slight bend in it. You want just a tiny bit of a bend there. Also check to make sure those core muscles are nice and tight, those abdominal muscles, those obliques, and that lower back should be completely tense to make sure you're keeping everything really nice and solid, not letting those hips roll around too much. And last but not least, make sure that you're not putting too much weight in those hands. You want those hands there for a little bit of extra balance support, but you don't want to be really leaning against that chair like crazy. Alright, just about 20 seconds left until we have all those repetitions done. Just keep that motion going. Nice tight squeeze every single time. Really focus on getting that solid tight squeeze at the top of that range of motion every single time you bring that leg up. That's the most important part of this exercise. Almost done. And let it relax. Alright, let's go ahead and move on to the next exercise, the side leg raise extensions. Go ahead and kick that chair out of the way, drop down on your mat. You're going to be starting on your right side first. Let's go ahead and get ready. And begin. Laying on that right side, lifting that left leg. You're going to start by lifting your leg with that knee bent at a 90-degree angle. Bring it up as high as you can without letting those hips kick back behind you. Then at the top of that range of motion, extend that leg out. Drop it down from there, but don't let those knees touch. Keep a little bit of a hover underneath those knees. Bend that knee back, and then press that leg right back up again. Extend that leg out. Drop it back down, then start that whole cycle over. Just keep that motion going nice and slow under control. You want to try to keep those core muscles nice and tense the entire time. They're going to want to relax on you because they don't really want to do any work. So you want to make sure you always keep everything really nice and contracted. Make sure you get a little extra work out of what it actually wants to do. Now let's get back to focusing on that left leg. You can bend that knee to a 90-degree angle, lift that leg up really nice and high without letting those hips kick back. You really want to focus on making sure that you keep those hips tilted forward towards the front leg, towards those knees, as opposed to leaning back away from you. Now those hips are going to want to lean away from you because it's a lot easier to do it that way, so constantly be trying to keep those hips tilted forward. And that's your last one right there, so go ahead and let it relax. We're going to switch sides. We're going to do the same exact motion on that opposite side. So lay over on that left side this time, focusing on that right leg. Now I'm sorry to tell you this, but this one's going to be a lot harder because that right leg is already tired from doing that motion with that left leg, believe it or not. So this one's going to get a lot harder, a lot faster. Nice slow fluid motion. Remember, starting with that knee bent at a 90-degree angle, lift that leg up as high as you can, extend it at the top, full extension, then nice and slow back down. You want to make sure that those knees line up when you drop them back down. Make sure you have just a little bit of a gap underneath that knee. Remember, keep those hips tilted forward. It's going to feel a lot harder to keep those hips tilted forward, but those legs are going to get a lot more out of it. So really focus on trying to keep those hips forward as much as you can. Now make sure you check those abs as well. They're going to be wanting to completely relax on you and do no work at all, so make sure that you're forcing them to do some extra work. Suck that belly button into your spine nice and tight. Contract those abdominal muscles. Contract those obliques in that lower back. Make sure everything's completely tense, making sure that every single one of those core muscles is as tight as you can possibly get it. Now we're almost done. Just keep it going. And that's your last repetition right there. Go ahead and let it relax. We're going to switch off to the next exercise, the scissor bridges. Let's get ready. And begin. Starting flat on your back. Bring those hips up really nice and high. One leg at a time. Out to the side, back in. You're trying to keep those hips as high as you can. Those thighs perfectly parallel at the same time as bringing one of them out to the side as wide as you can go. And then nice and slow, bring it back in. So this is going to depend quite a bit on how flexible that inside thigh is, to how much range of motion you're going to get. But just try to push it as much as you can, as much as is comfortable. All right, let's go ahead and drop it. Switch those legs. Doing the same exact motion, this time with that left leg. Keep those hips up really nice and high. Try to keep a nice straight line from that right knee down to that shoulder. And Then that nice slow motion with that left leg out to the side as wide as you can go, then nice and slow back in, trying to keep that thigh parallel to the other thigh the entire time. Make sure that leg doesn't droop or doesn't come up. You want it just going out to the side and back in. And that's the last one right there. Go ahead and let it relax. Let's move on to the next exercise, doing small leg circles, laying flat on your back for this one. Go ahead and get ready. And begin, laying flat on your back. That left knee bent at a 90-degree angle. You're going to bring that right leg straight up above that hip. Try to bring it over top of your body as much as you can. You want to really make that hip flexor and quadricep have to work. You're doing alternating circles, so nice and slow, clockwise. Bring that toe from over top of your body, down away from you just a little bit, up, back, over top of your body. Pause at the top, then reverse directions. Just keep alternating back and forth. Nice, slow, fluid motion, trying to get as much range of motion over top of your body as you can, but keeping that circle only about 12 inches across maximum. Now, if you want to make this exercise just a little bit harder, then go ahead and extend that left leg out completely straight, flat against the ground. Makes it much more difficult to bring that leg up over top of your body. Makes that hip flexor and quadricep have to work quite a bit harder. We're almost done. And go ahead and let it relax. We're going to switch sides. So bring that left leg up, nice and straight above that hip. Remember, trying to pull it over top of your body as much as you can. Nice, slow counterclockwise circle, and then clockwise back the opposite direction. Pause at the top of the circle every single time. Nice, slow, fluid motion. Make sure that quadricep and that hamstring are completely contracted, making sure that leg stays perfectly straight the entire time. Just slowly making about a 12-inch diameter circle right above that hip joint. Now just keep focusing on that motion. You want a nice, slow, fluid circle with that leg, but you also want to focus on those abdominal muscles. Make sure that belly button's pulled in nice and tight. Those core muscles are completely solid, trying to keep those hips completely stationary. They're going to want to rock left to right, but try to keep them as solid as possible. And go ahead and let it relax. That is the last one right there. Drop that leg down. Now we're going to be doing the big leg circles. So same exact motion, but really nice big ones this time. So you're going to drop it way out to the side, bring it straight up across in front of you. Pause at the top again, and then bring it right back out the other side. Bring it up across the outside, back up over top of your body. Just keep alternating that direction back and forth, clockwise and counterclockwise, making sure you're keeping those abdominal muscles really nice and tight. Now they're going to really be important on this one to make sure that those hips don't move. As soon as you bring that leg out to the side, those hips are going to roll on you, so you want to use those abdominal muscles, those obliques, that lower back, to try to keep those hips stationary. Now another thing to focus on is making sure that your breathing is nice and even. Don't hold your breath. You want to be either inhaling or exhaling the entire time. Doesn't matter when, just as long as you don't hold your breath. Now just like with the small leg circles, if you want to make this exercise just a little bit harder, then go ahead and extend that left leg out flat against the ground. It makes those hips have to work a little bit harder to bring that leg up over top of your body. It's a little bit different range of motion, a little bit different angle on those hips, causes it to be quite a bit more difficult. So just whichever version you want, either that leg extended for the harder or that knee bent just like this for the easier version. Just focus on that leg, get a nice big sweeping circle, keeping that thigh contracted, making sure that leg stays completely straight the entire time. And check those abdominal muscles one more time. We're almost finished. Back around one more time. And let that leg relax. Let's go ahead and switch sides. There's the last one. Big circles on that left leg this time. Get that leg up there nice and straight. Drop it off to the left. Nice big sweeping motion coming across and up over top of your body. Pause at the top. Nice and slow. Reverse it back around the other side. Just keep going back and forth. Nice slow fluid motions. Make sure that quadricep is contracted really nice and tight. Make sure that hamstring is contracted really nice and tight. Keeping that leg fully extended, perfectly straight the entire time we're going through this motion. Just keep focusing on every single little bit. Make sure those abdominal muscles are nice and tight, sucking that belly button in nice and tight. Those obliques, that lower back and those abdominals are keeping those hips completely stationary. You want to let those hips move as little as possible. Everything nice and solid from your rib cage all the way down. You're also going to be using those arms even a little bit to help you keep your balance, keep those shoulders flat on the ground as you're sweeping that leg around. So everything in that body should be nice and tensed. Even that leg, that right leg that's just kind of relaxed there, you want to keep those thigh muscles and that calf muscle contracted the entire time just to get a little extra calorie burn. Now we're getting close to being done. Go back through and check everything. Make sure those abs are nice and tight. Those obliques are nice and tight. That lower back is tight. Make sure your quadricep, the top of your thigh and the back of your thigh is completely contracted, making sure that leg stays straight. We're almost done. And go ahead and let that leg relax. All right, that was the end of round number 1. Go ahead and grab a drink of water, take a short little break here. We're going to start with round number 2 in just a second. And let's go and start round number 2, starting back over with the kneeling leg extensions. Let's start with that left leg first. So go ahead and drop down on those elbows and knees. Go ahead and get ready. And begin. Bring that left leg up really nice and high. Bring that thigh up as high as possible. Knee bent. Extend it out nice and straight. Tuck that heel back in. Give it a nice tight squeeze on that hamstring. Then slowly extend it back out. Just remember, you're going to be working against yourself the entire time. You want that quadricep, the front of that thigh, and that hamstring, the back of that thigh, working against each other the entire time, whether you're pulling that heel in or pushing that leg out. Doesn't matter, just make sure both of those muscles are contracted the entire time. Also, keep reminding yourself, shove that knee up, keep that thigh up as high as you can, get a tight squeeze in that butt for every single repetition. We're almost done. Check that form one last time. Make sure that butt's squeezed up really nice and high, pulling that thigh up. Make sure you're getting a tight squeeze, pulling that leg in and extending it back out. Almost done. And let it relax. Let's go ahead and switch sides. Do the same thing on that right leg. Bring that right leg up. Really pull that thigh up, pull that knee up. Make sure that butt's contracted nice and tight, squeezing as hard as you possibly can. Contract that leg in, pull that heel towards your butt, then slowly contract that leg back out. Extend that leg back out away from you. You want to make sure that hamstring and that quadricep, the front and the back of that thigh, are constantly working against each other, pulling that leg in, pushing it back out. Make sure those abs are nice and contracted. Every muscle in your body should be tensed, making sure you're burning as many calories as possible. Almost done. Check that form one last time. Squeeze that thigh up really nice and high. Squeeze that butt really nice and tight. That hamstring and that quadricep should be completely contracted. Almost done. And let it relax. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next exercise, the downward dog arcs. Go ahead and get ready. And begin. Get up in that downward dog position. Hands directly underneath those shoulders. Get a nice straight line from your wrist all the way up to that hip. So shove that chest down. Then start with that left leg first, that nice big arc motion. Then switch it over to the right. Nice big arc motion. Bring it back. And then switch it back onto that original leg. Make sure you're getting a nice range of motion. Trying to open those hips up as much as you can. You can roll those hips open if you need to try to get a little extra range of motion out of it. But just focus on trying to push your range of motion, keeping that leg as straight as you possibly can, and keeping that chest down as much as you can. Get a nice straight line from your wrist all the way up to that hip. And we're almost done. Check that form again. Try to keep that chest down nice and low. I know those shoulders are burning like crazy. Keep focusing on getting a nice big range of motion, keeping that leg nice and straight, contracting that thigh the entire time, getting a tight squeeze in that butt, and let it relax. All right, let those shoulders release. We're going to move on to the next exercise, the bridge circles. Go ahead and get ready. And begin. Bring those hips up really nice and high into that bridge position. Make sure you're keeping a nice straight line from that shoulder all the way down to that knee. Then do that nice circular motion with that leg. Then switch it off to the other side. Do that same exact motion with the opposite side. A nice big clockwise circle, nice big counterclockwise circle. Then switch it back again. Every single time letting those hips drop for just a second while you switch those legs and then bring them right back up again. Make sure that thigh stays contracted to keep that leg straight. Make sure those core muscles are really nice and tight to make sure those hips stay stationary. Make sure they don't rock as you move that leg around. But trying to push that range of motion on that leg as much as you possibly can while keeping that leg straight. I know this is a long one, but we're almost done, so keep pushing through it. Go back through, check your form, make sure you're trying to push those hips up as high as you possibly can every single time. Make sure you're keeping that leg really nice and straight. Make sure that quadricep and that hamstring are completely contracted, forcing that leg to stay out nice and straight through that entire circle. And make sure every single time you come back up into that bridge, you're pressing those hips as high as you can. We're almost done. And let it relax. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next exercise, the leg lift pulses. Go ahead and get ready. And begin. Go ahead and tip over forward. Try to get that chest parallel to the ground. That leg you're standing on should have just a slight bend in your knee. That leg that's back behind you, that left leg, should be perfectly out straight. Get a nice tight squeeze at the top of the range of that motion every single time, dropping down to parallel to the ground and then right back up. Just a few inches of range of motion, but making sure it counts. You want a tight squeeze at the top of that range of motion every single time. Also check those core muscles, make sure that belly button is pulled into your spine. Nice tight contraction on those abdominal muscles, those obliques, and that lower back, keeping those hips nice and stationary. Yeah, we're almost done. We're going to switch sides here in just a second. Keep pushing that squeeze. Nice tight squeeze at the top. And go ahead and let it relax. Switch over to the other side. Drop that chest back down to parallel to the ground. Bring that right leg up this time. Really tight squeeze on that side. Remember, dropping it down to parallel to the ground, then squeezing up as high as you possibly can, really focusing on getting as tight of a squeeze in that glute, on that butt muscle as you can at the top of that range of motion. Make sure that quadricep and that hamstring staying nice and tight, keeping that leg perfectly straight. Those core muscles are completely contracted all the way around to keep those hips stationary. And we're almost done with this leg. We're almost there. Keep pushing it. Tight squeeze the top. Just a few more. And let it relax. All right, go ahead and switch off to the next one. We're doing side leg raise extensions next. So drop down on the mat, get that chair out of the way. Go ahead and get ready. And begin. Starting off with that left leg, keep that knee bent at a 90-degree angle. Pull that leg up as high as you possibly can to the top of that range of motion without letting those hips tip backwards. Then extend that leg out straight and slowly drop it from there. Once you get down to the bottom, make sure you keep just a little bit of a gap between those knees, hovering just a little bit off that other knee. Just make sure you're focusing on making sure those knees line up. So when you drop that knee back down, you want them right one on top of the other. You don't want that top knee slid back behind that bottom knee, because that's a good indication that you're letting those hips tip backwards too far. You want to make sure those hips are tipped forward so those knees are lined up one on top of the other when you get down to the bottom. Now, nice slow fluid motions. Tight squeeze, pulling up to the top, then extend that leg slowly back down. Make sure that quadricep and that hip flexor are really having to work hard to get that leg extended out straight, so you're not only pushing it out straight, but you're also trying to pull it up in front of your body just a little bit. And we're almost done. Just one more full repetition left. Nice and slow up. Extend that leg out. Slowly drop it back down. And let it relax. All right, go ahead and switch over to the other side. We're going to do the same exact motion on the opposite leg. So laying on your left side this time, moving that right leg. Start with those knees at a 90-degree angle and slowly bring that knee up. Remember, keep those hips tilted forward. Try to get a good full extension on that leg. Then nice and slow, let it back down, keeping a little bit of a gap between those knees. And we're almost done. Check that form again. Make sure those abs are contracted nice and tight. Make sure those hips are tipped forward. I know those legs are getting really tired by this point. We're almost done. So your last one right here, full extension, nice and slow down. And let it relax. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next exercise, the scissor bridges. Go ahead and get ready. And begin. Go ahead and pull up into that bridge position. Those hips up really nice and high. Keeping a straight line from your knee all the way down to your shoulders. Bringing that right leg first, out to the side and back in. Nice slow fluid motions. Make sure those thighs stay parallel. You're just bringing them out away from each other and back in together, not up and down. So it's a nice slow contraction out, using that outside thigh, then slowly pulling it back in, using that inside thigh. And we're almost done. Go ahead and let that leg relax. We're going to switch over to the other side. Same exact motion on that opposite side. Make sure that quadricep and that hamstring are nice and contracted. Keeping that leg perfectly straight. Again, check those hips. Make sure you're really shoving up nice and high. Get a nice straight line from your knee all the way down to your shoulder. And we're almost done with this side. Last one right here. And let it relax. All right, drop those hips. Moving on to the next exercise, the small leg circles. Go ahead and get ready. And begin. Starting with that right leg first, bring that right leg straight up over top of that hip. Make sure that quadricep and hamstring are keeping that leg perfectly extended straight. Then draw a nice small circle, about 12 inches in diameter, right above that hip joint. You want to really try to force that leg to come up over top of that stomach just a little bit, really making that leg have to work a lot harder, making that quadricep and hip flexor have to work a lot harder. Now also focus on those abdominal muscles, those obliques, and that lower back, making sure everything's contracted really nice and tight, keeping those hips completely stationary the entire time you're moving that leg around. And we're almost done. Just keep that motion going, that leg nice and straight. And let it relax. All right, let's go ahead and switch sides. Bring that left leg up. Same exact motion. Contract that thigh. Make sure that leg is completely straight. Then draw those nice small circles, 12 inches diameter, right above that hip joint. So make sure those abdominal muscles are nice and contracted, those obliques and that lower back to keep those hips stationary. And just try to make sure you're breathing normally, not holding your breath. Doesn't matter when you breathe, just make sure you're not holding your breath at any point. And we're almost done, just a few more repetitions and we're going to switch back over to that right leg. And go ahead and let it relax right there. Drop that leg down, switching back to the right leg for those big leg circles this time. Drawing a nice big circle, trying to get down as close to the ground as you possibly can, out to the side and down in front of you. Just keep alternating directions once that leg gets back up over top of your body. Just nice slow fluid motion. Make sure that thigh stays contracted. Make sure those core muscles stay contracted. And we're almost done. Check that form one more time. Make sure that leg stays nice and straight. Make sure you're trying to push that range of motion as much as you can. Check those abdominal muscles, those core muscles. Keep those hips as stationary as you can. And this is our last one. Go ahead and let it relax. We're going to switch legs. Do the same thing on that opposite side. So bring that left leg up. Again, nice big leg circles. Drop it out to the side, up over top of that stomach, and then bring it back around. Pause the top of that range of motion. And start it again. Just keep that motion going nice and slow under control. Make sure those abdominal muscles stay perfectly contracted the entire time. Make sure that thigh stays contracted, keeping that leg nice and straight. Just keep focusing on pushing that range of motion as much as you can control, as much as is comfortable. And we are almost done. This is our last exercise. Check that form one last time. Leg nice and straight, core muscles nice and tight. Nice big circle on that leg, keeping everything as solid as you possibly can. And let that leg relax. All right, good job. This workout is complete. You just finished Fitness Splendor's squat-free butt and thigh workout. Now don't forget, Fitness Splendor's workouts are free because of viewers like you who share these workouts with your friends and family. So help us spread the word by sharing your favorite videos. We're putting out new workouts all the time, so if you want to see the newest ones as soon as they come out, make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube or like us on Facebook.